In this video, I'm going to be doing a product review on a substance called Lucas Power Steering Stop Leak. Now, I've heard rumors that this stuff will destroy your power steering pump. At this point, I feel I don't really have a choice. I just bought this car. It is a 2008 Infiniti G37 Coupe. And unfortunately, within a week of owning it, I noticed I have a severe leak on my rack and pinion gear motor, is what it's called. I don't have the wheels turned where you can see this right now. I don't really think it matters, but basically what's happening is the boot is leaking. You can already kind of see a drop on the ground there. See that little shiny spot? My boot is leaking. It would be dripping at a steady flow had it just regular power steering fluid in it. From what I've looked into, the part cost $500. And to have it replaced by a mechanic, it's a $2,000 job or higher. So I'm gonna jack the car up and change the oil. While I'm under there, I'm gonna observe the difficulty in replacing this part myself. But in the meantime, I'm gonna be testing this stuff out. And maybe in a couple of weeks, I'm going to do the second part of the video, kind of a conclusion, because some people have just posted a video of them dumping this stuff in their car and then end of video. So we have got no valuable input whatsoever on this substance on any videos that I have found. So in this video, not only can you see that I have put the stuff in my power steering reservoir. It is very thick. It's as thick as molasses, basically, which does concern me, especially seeing as how it is wintertime. So I will be allowing this car to warm up for quite some time before I actually drive it. But even then, I am kind of concerned for the amount of stress that's going to be put on the impeller blades of my power steering pump. Because if you've ever taken one apart and looked at it, the impeller blades are very thin pieces of metal that could possibly bend when attempting to pump a thick fluid like this. I don't know yet. So, without further ado, here we go. This is the beginning of the test. And so far, the leak has stopped substantially. I went through an entire bottle of power steering fluid in about 20 miles. I had to stop at a truck stop and buy 2 of these to get me home. And it took 2 of them to get me home. By the time I was pulling off the exit, I had no power steering. So it was a dire situation and a huge disappointment, by the way. I really miss my electric power steering in my Pontiac G6. It was so much less componentry and just completely hassle-free. I am dismayed that they would design a product that constantly goes out on the driver's side. From the forums I have read, a lot of people are experiencing a boot leak on their 2008 Infiniti, or any Infiniti for that matter. So it's an obvious problem, but yet they've done nothing to correct it. So I'm going to see what I can do to mitigate this issue without actually pulling the unit out. I'm going to observe the difficulty in replacing the part, but as I said, we're going to see if this stuff actually does what it says it can do. It has all these guarantees, or your money back. I'd highly doubt that. So it says renews worn pinion or rack and pinions. Totally controls slacks, wheels, hard spots, and tight steering. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. And if it destroys my power steering pump, I will be posting that information in this video, and I will be out another $1,000 most likely. So it's a very risky move on my part. But I am sharing my experience with the YouTube community because you guys have helped me so much by taking the time to post information that I have used to do many things to save me a lot of money. So here we go. Ran out of data there. Sorry about that. I'm going to go ahead and fire this thing up, take it to the gas station, and we're going to see if any more leaks take place. And that'll kind of be the final plot of this video. I'm thinking about driving this thing all week and just adding fluid instead of taking my girlfriend's car to St. Louis. I almost trust this combination of fluids enough to do that. So the observations at the end of this test will determine what decision I make. So this could be interesting. So far we have no drips. The reservoir was at 105 degrees initially, and we are going to take those readings again when we get back from the gas station. Okay, just for the sake of information and input, we're looking at 40 degrees Fahrenheit, which will play a small role in the observations we're going to be examining in this video. If it's hot outside and you're considering running this stuff for a while, you may not experience the same thing I am, and your leak may not be from a rack and pinion, which is a little bit different than a seal leak on a low pressure side or something like that. I could definitely see this stuff doing an okay job on a leak on the low pressure side of the system. The fact that I am experiencing a high pressure leak is definitely gonna fit me into my own category as far as the plausibility of using this product. So you really need to take the details into consideration when thinking about these things and whether or not they're for you. So bear that in mind. The leak that I have is a high pressure leak. You may have a low pressure leak, which I would believe this product would be entirely sufficient. It's sealing up a low pressure leak. So on behalf of the Lucas company and their products, I will vouch for them in the sense that I do believe this substance would eliminate any low pressure leak to such an extent that a repair would no longer be required. But as far as high pressure leaks, there are too many variables involved, depending on the nature of the leak, the severity, and so forth. So there you go. Oh, wait a second. It seems to be either my thermocouple is just a piece of junk, which is quite often the case, or I have driven into a very hot area. I don't know how I go from 5 degrees one place to the next, but okay. So that's the approximate temperature apparently. We do not have the luxury of accuracy in this test. Just one more thing to take away from this video, people. This should prompt you into realizing how important changing your fluids is. I just bought this car when it had 96,000 miles on it, and essentially the person who had it before me obviously never changed the power steering fluid. I believe it's recommended you do so every 50,000 miles. I could be wrong, but from this day on, that is a fluid I will be changing and flushing every 30,000 miles for sure, because the last thing I want to do is replace the rack and pinion again. Not only does it cost $470, but if you don't do it yourself, it's going to cost you well over $2,000. So just a thought to keep in mind: change your damn fluids. They do not last forever. You will tear stuff up. Okay, here we are back at the garage. We're now at 181 miles, and we are going to observe the reservoir level, temperature, and we're going to be viewing the rack and pinion boot to see if we're getting any type of a drip. Okay, so here we are. We are now at the hot max level. So it has lost some fluid. The reservoir is at 120 degrees. The solution is fairly liquid. Not the very thick viscous stuff we see with just the Lucas. We were all the way up to the top of that. So it did lose a little bit of fluid, and the amount of miles that we drove there, which is this right here. And I'm going to turn this light on, and we are going to take a look at the boot and see what kind of drip we get at 120 degree fluid. By the way, isn't this engine just badass? I mean, how lucky am I to have 2 air filters? It's a little expensive, but man, this thing passes like a motorcycle. Even though it's crapping out on me, I do love driving this thing. So now let's get back to the topic and subject, please. Okay, so now that the fluid is heated up to 120 degrees, we are getting a nice drip there, which isn't so painful. Before, the stuff was draining your reservoir when you're parked. It was just coming out of there so bad. It does have a nice red color to it, indicating that quite a bit is coming out of there. I don't know if I want to risk driving this all week like this. I suppose it's doable. It's going to be a little expensive, but I got to get to work this week. I need that $1,000, man. I nearly killed my credit card buying parts for this thing, so I'm going to have to make it through the week. And despite the puddle that we see here flowing out of this thing, I believe some of that may just be the stuff that's leaking out of the boot. That boot is acting as a reservoir in itself at this point. And I bet you the leak we're seeing is just from pressure. So I think I'm going to risk it. That does not conclude the test, though. I think maybe when I get back from St. Louis, I'll let you know how it went, how much money it cost to drive for a week on this thing, because that Lucas is $23 a bottle, and I think I spent another $10 on the Prestone. So that's our puddle, and that's a pretty hot mix there. I'm gonna go ahead and check this again in the morning. It appears we've already lost something here. I don't have any batteries in that. I don't have a light available at the moment. But we are just below the hot max line, almost right at it. We are at hot max. In the morning, I'm going to come back and check this and see if there is any type of steady flow when the car is just sitting there. So there you have it. I'm going to shut this test down for the night and see where we end up in the morning. And again, these are the products in question. Renews worn rack and pinions. Not true. Okay, it's 48 degrees in here. Just gotta double check that. Yeah, that's pretty accurate. And we're gonna check this leak out. See if I can get this light to come on. Okay, so we're looking under the car here. You can see the size of the puddle that was left. It is no longer leaking. That's just a leak that was formed by the hot fluid. Also, as I said, that boot is kind of acting as a reservoir. So some of the leak that we were observing was fluid that was already pushed out of the seal under the high pressure action of steering. But it has stopped. So this can sit overnight without leaking fluid now, whereas before it was just kind of dripping out of there. I'm going to pop the hood and see if we can get an idea of what's going on with that. Take a look at the reservoir. If my memory serves me, the fluid level was right at the hot max. I know you can barely read that, but that's right here. And it is dropped down to just above the cold max. So a small amount of fluid was lost. But you know what? Then again, oil does expand and contract substantially under heating and cooling. So a lot of that may simply be the expansion and contraction. We're down to 71 degrees, so believe it or not, oil does expand and contract quite a bit. I have built a couple of devices that actually use that property of fluids in some of my other videos you may have seen. So a lot of that may not be fluid that leaked out. It may just be the cooling contraction effect. So, based on this information, I'm feeling like I'm going to go ahead and try and drive this thing to St. Louis, which is about 2 hours away. I'm going to be staying at a hotel, and the job site's only about 4 minutes away. So, I'm going to go ahead and add an additional clip describing how the week went. I'm definitely going to have to buy more of this, so I'm going to be out $46 in this alone just to get me through the week, and I'll probably buy another bottle of this. Something tells me that that will be enough to get me through the week. Based on what I'm seeing, I think that I'll be able to get through the week. So, as far as this being a Band-Aid to hold you over, yes, it does serve that purpose very well. Is it a solution to a problem when it comes to a high pressure leak? Absolutely not whatsoever. It does not recondition seals, as it may claim, or any of that. It basically just increases the viscosity of your power steering fluid so much that the leak is diminished. Now, as I said, I can see this stuff completely fixing a leak on the low pressure side to a point where you could drive at 100,000 miles. I do honestly believe that's a possibility. But as far as high pressure leaks, this ain't gonna do it. I'm really taking a huge risk with my car doing this week, but what choice do I have? I'm gonna have to be busting this bad boy out and taking this thing apart. By the way, I'm going to be doing a review on this thing too. This is a Rockwell impact wrench, a 216 foot-pound impact driver, 20 volt. I bought this specifically to take this car apart. So this failure is getting quite expensive. I paid $169 for that thing. I'm getting way off subject here. So anyway, there you go. This stuff is a Band-Aid, a temporary Band-Aid. Will it destroy your power steering pump, as some people have claimed? It could. I can totally see that happening. The stuff does seem to thin out pretty good once it gets hot. But if you go starting your car at 10 degrees in the wintertime with this stuff in there, you very well may bend some impeller blades and just totally ruin your pump. So I highly suggest that you start your car, do not rev the engine. I typically do that on a cold morning to get some oil flowing, but if you're using this stuff, I would let your car sit at idle for at least 10 minutes before you go driving and raising them RPMs, because pumping this thick stuff in that pump, it just might bend the impeller blades, and when you do that, they will not contract back into their rotor sleeve, and they will bend, which will render the pump inoperable. It will destroy the pump. If you bend one of those impellers just the slightest amount, it will not retract back into the hub, and will most likely break off. And we're just going to see how this goes. I'm thinking about posting this video just for you guys to observe what I've discovered so far. And then next week, when I come back with additional information, I'll go ahead and take this video down, and I will re-edit in the new footage into this video. So this video is pretty much over. I think we've learned enough. We have seen what this stuff is capable of. You see that there is a puddle underneath my car, but at least it's not still leaking, which was the case with just regular power steering fluid in there. This is not regular power steering fluid. This stuff's kind of thick in its own right. It's not super thin. But, so this is kind of a double review to show you how this stuff works on rack and pinion leaks. So, with that said, I'm going to go ahead and throw this footage together, do a minimal amount of editing, and hopefully this helps someone out in making an educated decision on whether or not this stuff's for them. Because I know I often go to YouTube before I even go think about purchasing a product, especially something like this. I have YouTubed everything from seafoam to engine restore, all that stuff. So hope this helps somebody out. If you got a low pressure leak, this may be the stuff for you. I could totally see it working out. Do not put too much of it in your system though. You risk bending an impeller blade on your power steering pump and destroying it. Or you could possibly blow return lines off of the pump and leave you in a bad situation, because pressure buildup with high viscosity fluids is definitely an issue. So hope that helps somebody. Hopefully I get enough views in this video to pay for this expensive bottle of stuff. That would be nice. Good luck, fellas.